Welcome to the home of the Canyon Obsessed. My name is Brian Special, and this is the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show presented by Bright Angel Outfitters. Today, an emotional journey below the rim for a reminder of the very real danger that lies beneath. Whether you're a canyon vet or someone just starting to plan their bucket list hike, this is a story full of lessons that we can all learn from. Folks, if you want to support the show, we hope you'll consider our 22-liter rim-to-rim day pack, which was specifically designed for canyon hiking but made for any day hike on Earth. The front pockets on the shoulder straps are game changers. You can find the rim-to-rim pack on our website, brightangeloutfitters.com. Order now and get free shipping for a limited time. That's brightangeloutfitters.com. We exist to help you hike your best hike. All right, today, a story that touched all who were involved in it. The year was 1996, but it could have just as easily been 2024, when a little boy and his family were about to go on an unforgettable hike into the Grand Canyon. This is the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show presented by Bright Angel Outfitters. It started out as the adventure of a lifetime for 10-year-old Phillip Grim. His first ride on an airplane, and his first hike into the Grand Canyon. It was all part of his grandmother's dream of sharing her love of the canyon with her family. Dr. Tom Myers was the attending physician at Grand Canyon Clinic on the day of their hike.
Big Grand Canyon fan. She really loved it. She had hiked the Grand Canyon, I believe it was like at least once, maybe twice before, and thought so highly of it and that experience that she had these hats made where she embroidered Grand Canyon on the front of the hat. And I thought it was so cute. I mean, she obviously cared, and she told me, she said she wanted Phillip to experience the Grand Canyon that she loved and had experienced as well, and they wanted to take him on a hike.
So 11 members of the Grim family headed west from their home in Ohio. 4 of them, Phillip, his grandma, and his great aunt and uncle, planned on a 2-day, 21.5-mile rim-to-rim from South Kaibab to North Kaibab, with a night in between at Bright Angel Campground. The others, including Phillip's mother, would meet the triumphant hikers on the North Rim. It sounded like the perfect plan. The 4 were likely teeming with excitement as they thought about the grand adventure that lay ahead. But there was already a problem that they likely had not spent much time considering. It was July 23rd, the hottest and most dangerous time of the year.
She said that the only reason that they had chose that date was because the only one available, that they could stay down there at Phantom. And there's a reason for that, and it's the heat. Most people know Grand Canyon wouldn't want to be down there or hiking there in that kind of heat.
Undeterred, the 4 started down. At around 10 that morning, at least 6 hours later than would be advised for such a hike, with little Phillip joyfully leading the way.
She said that Phillip actually started, skipping down the trail and was happy as can be.
At Cedar Ridge, just a mile and a half down, a ranger was on duty, warning hikers about the dangers of descending any farther on what would ultimately be the hottest day of the year, with a high temperature at Phantom Ranch of 116. But Phillip and his elders had a plan, and they were sticking to it.
They get down in there, and I don't know at what point, but I'm sure it was before halfway down that he started to bonk. It was really hot, and after a while he started complaining that he wasn't feeling great and his pack was heavy, and he handed his pack off to his great uncle, and they were out in front.
By this point, the group had split up. Phillip's grandmother and great aunt were falling farther and farther behind as the effects of the heat started to take a toll. Phillip and his great uncle moved farther and farther ahead, even as they struggled themselves.
He wasn't drinking much, if at all. He was a trooper. He kept pushing down and to get to the Black Ridge, and he ran across it. He was pretty excited. I'm sure he saw the river, and he's probably in full-blown heat stroke there, or he's really he's on the edge of heat stroke. I mean, he probably at a very high core temperature even at that point, because he sprinted across, and that might have spiked his core temperature.
Within minutes of running across the bridge, and now just a short walk from the cold water of the Colorado River and Bright Angel Creek, Phillip stops and sits and waits for his great uncle to catch up.
His uncle caught up with him and said, "Phillip, we need to get going. We'll get to Phantom. We're going to get some Gatorade and some cold drinks, so let's keep going." And he walked off.
The uncle continued on the path to Phantom Ranch, just a quarter-mile away at this point. Eventually, Phillip tries to follow.
And that's the way I understood it. Phillip sat there for a while, and then he stood up and he fell face first into the trail. He wobbled and fell face first, and some hikers came across him. They rolled him over. His eyes were open. And the sand at that point, it was 115 that day, so the sand was probably at least 170, 100, blazing hot. He still had a pulse. He was still breathing. It was really, really really fast, really rapid. They tried to cool him off, at least with the water they had. If they had had the opportunity of hauling him all the way to the creek and trying to immerse his whole body in there, where the Colorado would have been the best chance to save his life. But they got help, and they cooled him off there in the trail the best they could.
Soon after, more help arrived.
The ALS Rangers, Advanced Life Support Rangers, were there on scene, and they started advanced life support measures. Unfortunately, they got him cooled off, and they flew him out to the clinic. We had heard on the radio, our EMS radio, what was going on, and that he was going to be coming up, and so we were prepared for that. Remember when he came in, he wasn't much bigger than my daughter, who was 8 years old at the time, and Phillip was not a big 10-year-old, but it was tough. It was very, very emotional, because clearly he was at the end. He was. We finished running the code. He was asystole, basically flatlined. His core temperature was normal. His pupils were fixed and dilated. He had no response. He was. He was dead, and so all I could really do was run the final stages of that code and pronounce his death. And there wasn't a dry eye in the clinic. It was pretty sad.
Back in the canyon, a mile or so short of the river, Phillip's grandma and great-aunt, oblivious to what was happening on the rim, were in the throes of their own heat emergencies, dire enough that they too would need to be evacuated first to the bottom, and then by helicopter to the same clinic where Phillip was. Dr. Myers treated them and delivered the news that would forever alter the Grim family.
Yeah, all I could do was just try to console them the best I could. I just didn't know what to say. There are no words.
What is that like as a, not just as a doctor, of course, but as a dad, and especially, my God, with kids that are the same age?
Overwhelming sadness, sleep deprivation, stuff like that, especially with kids, and even for me as a physician, maybe, deaths like those is, you think if there was anything else that could be done, you replay things over in your mind, what could be done. And for me, I've never been a great sleeper, but I just remember having, several nights of insomnia back to back, just kind of thinking about it and seeing him there. All little tubes hanging out his body, he's got a tube down his throat. He's modeled, his appearance, and knowing that he's dead and that family's got to live with that, and that the parents like losing a child who was skipping down the trail at the beginning.
About a year later, the phone rang at Grand Canyon Clinic. The caller asked for Dr. Myers.
Phillip's mother, she just said that this destroyed my life. It destroyed my family. We're not talking, and how much she missed Phillip. It was really sad. I mean, I was, crying on the phone with her. It was like I really didn't know what to tell her. And then she said to me, "Did he die alone?" And I thought about it in the moment when he actually succumbed. He was by himself. That incident, I thought no child should ever suffer and die that way. The family had to deal with that. And the mom, I just really wanted to try to do something so that wouldn't be the case for another child, another family.
Not long after, Dr. Myers did do something, co-authoring Over the Edge, Death in Grand Canyon, a book that's a testament to those like Phillip who succumbed in the canyon, and a survival guide for those who might otherwise make the same mistakes.
That was the single biggest impetus, to want to do a book like Over the Edge. That Philip is not forgotten, that lessons can be learned from his death to hopefully save others. And so, I think about him all the time. That was a bad year, 1996. We had I think in that clinic that year, I looked in our ER ledger, we had like 100 cases of heat exhaustion, dehydration, and over 30 cases of hyponatremia. It was a bad year, and then we had 5 deaths from heat stroke. So, never forget it.
What do you think can be learned most from Philip's death?
I think the biggest thing from Philip's death is, and I say this about Grand Canyon all the time. It's like far too often people will overestimate their abilities, and Philip didn't. He was led in there by adults who you would have hoped would have known better, but they overestimate their ability, and then on an equal level or more, they'll underestimate the Grand Canyon. They'll underestimate the hazards there, and that's a lethal combination, right? I overestimate my ability to swim and underestimate the power of the Colorado, the current. But Grand Canyon in general is like you don't want to underestimate the hazards there and how this place it doesn't give a whit for us to be there, right? The hazards are what they are. And so you just don't want to take the place lightly. Do your due diligence to prepare and use good common sense and good judgment so you don't end up over the edge.
That is the story of little Phillip Grim. He would be 38 this year. Okay, let's dive a little deeper here. What if you came across someone having a heat emergency? Would you know what to do? Well, it happens almost every summer day in the Grand Canyon, and while few require hospitalization, imagine all of the near misses that we never even hear about. Let's say you come across a situation like that when you're in the canyon, God forbid, and someone is passed out by themselves, or they're showing advanced signs of potentially having heat-related issues that could potentially be life-threatening. If you come across a situation like that and there's no help anywhere around, what can you do as a hiker, as an everyman who just happens upon a situation like that to help and potentially maybe even help save someone's life?
If you were to come across somebody in Grand Canyon, like say they're collapsed and you're not sure, and it's really hot, and you're not sure the cause, is it a stroke? Is it their blood sugar? Is it a heart attack? You don't know. But if it's really hot and they're collapsed, you got to assume it's heat stroke until proven otherwise. So the first thing we do is immediate cooling. It's like you would try to get them, you remove them from the heat source if you can. First and foremost, get them in the shade. Try to cool them off. If you're really pretty confident, or you feel like their skin's hot, it's red, it's dry, you want to try to get them to the coldest water you can as soon as possible. And that would be like the Colorado River. If you had access to that, you got to try to cool them off. And fanning them, pouring water on them, getting them in a creek if they're available, pothole water, whatever, to try to cool them off. That's numero uno. That's what you would try to do.
How preventable was Philip's death?
Oh, hugely preventable. Choosing to be down there in the summer, it's a choice. So that's the biggest thing I would say. Grand Canyon is not that fun in the summer. It's not. And why make it epic? The misery that you live to tell the tale, and it's like, oh God, I nearly died. It's like they're kind of getting where people talk about, oh, you should hear what I went through. Fine, you give you some bragging rights, but to suffer that way, it's easily avoided. I try to avoid the Grand Canyon in the summer for sure, just because it's not fun. Even on the river trips, it's just too dang hot. And so the time of year, the time of day, avoid the hottest times. Go for the spring and the fall, and enjoy it. Enjoy it a lot more. If you go in the spring, there's probably be more water. If you're remote, and it's in the fall, be aware. You might not find water. So, use all those good things. Get yourself as knowledgeable as you can about where you're going, where's water. If I run out, where can I find more? And am I prepared for what temperatures and weather I'm going to encounter? That kind of thing.
Could someone have recognized what was happening with Philip? I know when he passed, when he collapsed, it's got to be so maddening to you because he was so close to Bright Angel Creek, and he was so close to the river, both of which provided cold water sources.
Yeah, I think the big failures there were his uncle not monitoring how much Philip was drinking and when he was urinating and trying to keep him wet, maybe with a little. I mean, if they did do it, then if he just said, "Hey, Philip, I know, do you feel thirsty?" And I would have had drinks that maybe would be more appetizing than blood warm water, or worse than blood warm, hotter than blood warm water, which is repulsive. Like Gatorade or something like that. Monitor how much he's drinking, is he urinating, get him wet, things like that. The other thing that I would say for people who do summer hikes, and I've done them, I'd be, like I said, a hypocrite if I didn't. There's things that you can prepare for. You can acclimatize, just like acclimatizing for altitude if you're going to do Everest or Mount McKinley. If you exercise, you start with some cardio in the heat, and I know your friend Arnie talked about this, but if you exercise in the heat and you gradually build that up, it takes about 5 days to start to get the benefit of that. And then if you do it solid for 2 weeks, you're going to actually produce more sweat, and you're going to produce, you got the cardiovascular benefit, right? Your your exertional tolerance will improve, but when you acclimatize to the heat, you produce more sweat. You produce at a lower core temperature. Your sweat has less electrolyte loss in it. It actually evaporates off your skin, better than really salty sweat. Like water, plain clear water evaporates really quickly off of our skin, where sweat has got a lot of salt in it, and so it evaporates a little less fast or slower. But the evaporative cooling is really important. So people, if they're going to do that, right, well, acclimatize the best you can. If you can't, you stay wet as much as you can. You try to stay cool. It's like, well, I know if you're sure it's going to be sticky on the hike out, well, it's better than dying of heat stroke. If you're going along, Pipe Creek and then Garden Creek and then mile and a half, Hiva Garden, 3 mile house, mile and a half house, you can get wet, just stay wet. You can actually enjoy it. So there's ways you can do heat and mitigate the risk. If you feel strong, you got to be down there in the summer, and I get it. It's not impossible. It's not the best time, but there's things you can do to actually enjoy it. Like if I was going to have from river trips, I would do this. If we had somebody hiking out from like Canyoneers at Pipe Creek, where we do exchange, passenger exchange. People hike in, the upper half, the people who are on the upper half, they're hiking out, the people who are on the lower, hiking in. I tell the people hiking out, it's like, look, there's 2 ways you could die from heat down here. It's like, you don't drink enough, you will overheat and die of heat stroke. You drink too much, you'll dilute all your blood sodium in your brain, so you die from that. The way to prevent both is you drink according to the dictates of your thirst, you stop and rest, you eat salty snacks, you get yourself cool, and you take advantage of evaporative cooling. That's sweat you don't have to earn, and you keep yourself covered. You have a nice big, hat, and you can actually enjoy a hike out of here and not be at high risk for either problem.
Philip would be 38 years old today. I mean, he'd be in the prime of his life, essentially, probably becoming a dad. So, I mean, do you ever think about that?
I do. I think about some of the, as a physician, for sure, you think about some of the tragedies, some of the losses, especially if it's a child who's, in a situation like that where he was just an innocent child. And, it's or a young person who dies from some other traumatic thing. It's tough. It'll stay with you. And so I do think of Philip all the time, and I think of his mother a lot. I wish I could, reach out to her. I wouldn't do that unless she wanted, if she reached out to me, like she did way back. But yeah, I think about her all the time, and the years that hasn't had Philip in her life. Yeah, so sad. Yeah.
Folks, Dr. Myers and Michael Guglieri's book, Over the Edge, Death in Grand Canyon, cannot get a high enough recommendation from me. When I first picked it up not too long ago, I initially thought, well, this sure is going to be depressing. But it didn't take long to figure out that the opposite is actually true. It is a survival guide. Through their storytelling style as they document these deaths, you're able to learn what not to do, which in an unforgiving environment such as the Grand Canyon is just as important as knowing what to do. If nothing else, buy it and read Chapter 3, where the stories of the heat-related deaths are told. I know we harp on it over and over and over here on the show. Choose the time of year and time of day of your hike very carefully. But we do that because if you're unfamiliar with the nature of hiking in this environment, and so many are through no fault of their own, you could be making a life and death decision and not even know it. Our thanks as always to Dr. Tom Myers, the Canyon Doc, for his invaluable insight and information that he provides to our hiking community, all based on his extensive experience in the canyon and, of course, his 30-plus years at Grand Canyon Clinic. He is just a remarkable resource, and we are so grateful to have his support. Dr. Myers, thank you. All right, on to another canyon expert, Coach Arnie Fonseca Jr., with his training tip of the week on the importance this time of strength when venturing below the rim.
Today's tip is another fairly general, but one that is near and dear to my heart as a former powerlifter turned canyon aficionado. It is about strength, because that's been my whole life, has been centered around being strong. And I think that's really helped me as I've become much older. I didn't get to the canyon until I was 55, and I'm getting ready to do an R5 at 65. And I think the main reason that I can do these things is because of my physical strength on the trails, because I'm not a great runner. I've done many marathons and ultra marathons and 100-mile races, but a lot of that was due to my ability to be strong, be able to recover better, all the things that strength allows you to do. I don't fall apart like a lot of runners do, and if I do get an injury, I have systems that help me to recover quicker and to avoid some of the running pitfalls, the knee problems and the hip problems and the back problems and the ankle problems and all that stuff. So the bottom line is this: the stronger you are, especially for those of us in our 50s, 60s, and beyond, the stronger you are, the better you're going to do in the canyon. The canyon is a tough place. It will eat you up if you are weak. If you are older and you don't have the muscle strength, the tendon strength, the ligament strength, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You've got to build those muscles and tendons and ligaments. You got to get them stronger. I promise you, if you do, your canyon experiences will be memorable. I love you guys.
That is Coach Arnie. His contact information is in the show notes, so feel free to reach out to him. And you can reach out to me as well. If you have an idea for a show or need a little advice, I'll do my best to help. You can reach me at gchikerdude@brightangeloutfitters.com, gchikerdude@brightangeloutfitters.com. That is in the show notes as well. Well, Coach Arnie and I both use our Rim to Rim Day Pack exclusively for our own canyon hikes. The Rim to Rim Pack was designed through my hundreds of miles below the rim and is all I wanted a day pack to be, with its front pockets and fully insulated hydration compartment. See for yourself why we love it so much. It's made for any day hike on Earth, and you can get it at brightangeloutfitters.com. We've also got tons of free resources on the site as well, like our Rim to Rim Beginner's Guide ebook, and of course the Grand Canyon Shade Tracker, which lets you see when and where you'll have shade on your hike, no matter your route, no matter the day. It's all at brightangeloutfitters.com. We exist to help you hike your best hike. All right, that's it for now. My name is Brian Special, encouraging you, as always, to go hike the canyon. Take that first step, embrace the journey, and when you get there, whether it's for time goals or taking your time, just hike your own hike and enjoy all that is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. We're so lucky to have it, the magnificent Grand Canyon. We'll see you all next time on the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show, presented by Bright Angel Outfitters.